Welcome to another franchise ranking video, and happy Friday the 13th, everyone. Since today is Friday the 13th, I thought it was a good time to re-rank all the movies in the Friday the 13th franchise, from my least favorite to my favorite, and this includes everything from the original Friday the 13th movie from 1980 to, unfortunately, the most recent Friday the 13th movie that we have that came out in 2009. It's a damn shame that we haven't gotten any new Friday the 13th movies since 2009. I really wish we would get one within the next 5 years. I'm not even confident with that. I know the stuff that was going on with Victor Miller and Sean S. Cunningham, but come on, guys. Come together, come to an agreement, and make another film in this franchise so we can have the 13th installment in this franchise. I am not including the fan-made films like Never Hike Alone and Roseblood, so just the 12 other movies that are in the Friday the 13th series, like the movies that are in the Scream Factory box set. Those are the 12 that I'm going to be talking about. Now, in preparation for this ranking video, I did go back and rewatch all these films to try to have a fresh perspective on them and maybe keep an open mind to some of the films in this franchise that I'm not really fond of. But if there's one thing that really annoys me, are there a bunch of other things that are good about the film. So my ranking has changed. I know some people will do this ranking once a year, but they won't go back and rewatch all the movies in the franchise. That's what they do. I did rewatch all the movies in the franchise, and if I dozed off, went back to the part that I remembered and started from that part and watched the whole entire movie again to, again, have a fresh perspective. And before I get into my ranking, a few things that you should know. Obviously, this video will contain spoilers, so if you haven't seen all the movies in the Friday the 13th franchise, minus the Never Hike Alone and Roseblood, then I highly suggest that you don't watch this video. And of course, this video will be my personal opinion. This is my ranking of the Friday the 13th franchise, not yours, but please make sure that you leave your ranking in the comments section. We're going to disagree. I have my opinions. This was the first horror franchise that I remember. I don't know if it's the first horror movie that I ever watched because I saw Friday the 13th Part 4, the final chapter, in the theater when I was 3 or 4 years old. I don't know if that's the first movie that I ever watched as far as horror goes, but it's the first one that I remember, and I loved this franchise. Now, rewatching the films in the franchise, I'm not as high on them anymore as when I did my Halloween ranking in October. I wasn't as high on some of those movies anymore as well, so I guess not everything can be Scream, but this is going to be my personal opinion, and I don't want to offend anybody. It's just my opinion. And again, make sure that you leave your ranking in the comments section. Share the video with a friend. Put this video on any one of your social media platforms. Remember, I've done other franchise rankings. I'll put my franchise ranking playlist right up there. I'll put my most recent Halloween franchise ranking right there. I'll put my Scream ranking right there. And then down here, I'll put my Saw ranking, since that was a very popular franchise ranking. In fact, Saw and Scream are my two favorite franchises. Friday the 13th used to be one, but it's just the quality of the films aren't as good as like Scream and Saw. So that's just my opinion. But anyway, you've heard all that. Now it's time for my ranking of the Friday the 13th franchise. And coming in 12th place. Well, actually, I should go back and say I didn't review my last ranking. I wanted to have a fresh perspective. Now, obviously, I know some of the placements didn't change, but I didn't go back to try to, already have a pre-existing notion of what I was going to put. So I rewatched those movies without going back to see my previous ranking. But unfortunately, number 12, despite me trying to have a fresh perspective on the film, is going to be in last place, of course. Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. This movie is just not that good. It's more like Jason takes a boat ride to Vancouver, and the acting isn't very good. The special effects, or lack thereof, are just awful. It looks cheesy. It's like a really, 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 really low budget made for TV movie. There's not a lot of things about this film that I really like. I was always upset about the ending of this movie where, spoiler alert, Jason's in the sewer and then he turns into a little boy again, but yet in the next film in the franchise, Jason Goes to Hell, he's back at Crystal Lake, wreaking havoc on people until he gets blown up. But this film is just not that good. I do like the cover of it, so that's a plus, the cover. Now, I do have of course, the Scream Factory box set but I changed my cases to the blue Blu-ray things instead of the clear ones because some of them were damaged in shipping, but the disc works just fine. But this, unfortunately, isn't very good. The two main leads in this film, Rennie, the female lead, and Sean, are just not that interesting. I don't think their acting is very good. Some of the kills were okay, but the whole film has a different feel to it. I think Charles, the father figure, was okay as far as his acting goes, and I think Julius was like one of the best characters in the film until, of course, he got his head knocked off in one of the worst special effects ever. It looked so fake. So I wanted to like this film even more. Unfortunately, I still hate it, and this is one of the worst horror movies that I've ever watched. Yeah, it just doesn't have any entertainment value, and compared to the other films in the franchise, it's really low. Like, there's a big jump up in the next film versus this one. So Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, is in 12th place. I'm sorry. I wanted to like it more. I went into this ranking, went into rewatching it thinking I'm going to like it more because I'm not going to just be mad about the end of the film with Jason as a little boy because of the toxic waste. But unfortunately, it just didn't work for me. And yeah, so anyway, that's in 12th place. In 11th place, and I know this is a little bit of a change, and I'm quite shocked by this. It's the film that I've seen the most in the theater. 10 times I saw Freddy vs. Jason in the theater. And while there's a lot of good things about this film, it's just a lot of a Nightmare on Elm Street in this film. And I'm not a big Freddy fan. In fact, I don't rank the Nightmare on Elm Street films because I just don't like them. I hope to do that someday, but I just can't get through them. Bad acting a lot, especially from like the main characters in the film. You do have some good dialogue, but you also have some cringy dialogue. Robert Englund was the show stealer in this film. You replace Kane Hodder with Ken Kirsinger, who didn't necessarily do a bad job. He's not the problem with the film. It's just cartoonish and too much A Nightmare on Elm Street for me. The main characters, Will and Laurie, Monica Keena, she just overacted at some points, and I didn't like it. Will didn't really have that much. I mean, John Ritter's kid, he could have been a lot better, but wasn't. Kia, played by Kelly Rowland, was actually good. I think the best character in this film is actually Stubbs, the cop who was in Scary Movie. Lachlan Monroe, I don't know exactly how you pronounce his name, but he was good. You have the J of Jalen Silent Bob ripoff, Freeberg. You have Linderman. He was okay. But ultimately, even though I've seen this movie many times and it used to be higher ranked, it's not a movie that I really want to go back to and watch. And I guess I should preface the fact that these are movies that I would want to rewatch in the franchise at this moment right now. And of course, my opinion can change the next time I do this, which won't be anytime soon. It'll probably be a couple years before I revisit it. But Freddy vs. Jason in 11th place. In 10th place for me, and I'm sorry to report Sledgehammer Horror is going to be really upset with this choice, but I have to go with Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday. I think this movie is good in terms of like how it looks and how gruesome it is. Like, they don't hold back on this film, which is a plus, and I wanted to like it more. I think I have a big problem with a lot of characters in this film. Steven and Jessica, in my opinion, aren't that interesting. But you have one of the most interesting characters in the whole franchise in Creighton Duke, who's in this film, but unfortunately meets his demise. I feel like he should have been the final person alive in this movie, but I guess it makes sense that he's not. But it just, the whole body swapping thing, just, you don't really get a lot of actual Jason in this film. I mean, you've got Jason, but it's Shapeshifter Jason. And the whole, now, the Necronomicon book and stuff in this film, they did different things in this movie, so I have to get a credit for that. And, of course, you get the iconic scene of Freddy's glove coming out at the end and pulling Jason's mask down below, but ultimately that doesn't save the film. It's just very uninteresting. I do like the sex scene in the movie when they're in the tent. That was a really good scene. The part when the coroner guy eats Jason's heart. When I first saw this film in 1993, I remember that grossing me out. So I don't know what possessed him to eat Jason's heart, if Jason's heart has magical powers or something like that. But I thought that was really cool, and it's cool that Kane Hodder actually gets to be Kane Hodder in this film as a security guard for a couple minutes. But unfortunately, Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday, comes in 10th place for me, and I'm sorry to Ken of Sledgehammer Horror, who probably canceled me right when he heard me say something about Sledgehammer Horror. In ninth place for me, and this is a bit of a change from what I remember from the last ranking, is going to be the original Friday the 13th. Now, I used to hate this film. With, the last 5 years, I've really not liked this film, but I have to give it credit because the film is different. I feel like there is some suspense. There's some tension in the film. It doesn't look all the way good for most of the run, but Alice is one of the most irritating final girls of this franchise. But Mrs. Voorhees, for the time that we get Mrs. Voorhees, was okay, I guess. She was kooky and loony, and met her demise in the film. You have Kevin Bacon in this, which he's awesome. It's awesome to see Kevin Bacon in this classic, as my hand's getting tired of holding it. But, I mean, there's really not much to say. I think most of the characters are okay, but it's just not a memorable movie for me, in my opinion. So the original Friday the 13th comes in ninth place. In 8th place, this is a big change from what I remember, is actually going to be Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning. Now, when I've previously watched this film, I've always been mad that it's not really Jason in the film, and that's what's kept it low. And I usually doze off during this film. For whatever reason, this is the Friday the 13th film that I can't stay awake during. Like, I feel like it goes too long at one point, which is not long, but for some reason it loses my attention span. But I stayed awake this time, and I realized the characters in this film are really good. You've got Tommy, which I don't really like the Tommies after Corey Feldman. You've got Reggie the Reckless, who's pretty good, and then you've got Pam, who's pretty good. And you've got all the nudity in the film. You've got actually some suspenseful moments, like some good jump scares by, well, what we thought is Jason, but turns out to be Roy. So that's good. It's okay. I'm not entirely sure what the end of the film is, if it's a dream sequence or something that actually happened. I'm guessing it's a dream sequence, but it's not 100% clarified and not really touched upon in the next film of their franchise. But it was a way for that they could make another Friday the 13th film. And I think it's okay. I'm interested to see what my next opinion on this will be. And it'll be a couple years before I rewatch all these films. But Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning, comes in 8th place. In 7th place, and, get ready to cancel me. I completely understand that not many of you like this film. I like it for some strange reason. But 7th place for me is going to be Jason X. Now, I know this is more of a low-budget film that looks like it should be on the Sci-Fi Channel. I completely get that. For some reason, I just like this, because they set it way in the future to try to not have any issues with continuity, at least for some things. The characters aren't necessarily really interesting, but they're not bad. Like Rowan, KM14... Sonoran and Sergeant Brodsky are all pretty good. There's too many people, in my opinion, that live at the end. I feel like there should only have been one person that survived this. You get the badass Uber Jason, which was pretty badass. I didn't like Jason, the regular Jason in this film, because you could see too much of Kane Hodder's eyes, and I felt like his eyes should have been more darker, but that's just a minor gripe. And I know, as cheesy as this film is, I just tend to enjoy it. I always get it's not one of those things that, like, oh, I can enjoy it. I always really have, like, this, for all its faults, I think it's an entertaining movie. And I know not many of you think that way, but that's my opinion. So Jason X comes in 7th place. This is another change that I remember. I don't know how much of a change it was, but I know it used to be lower on the list, and that would be coming in number 6th place is going to be Friday the 13th, Part 3, Of course, this film is remembered for Jason getting the hockey mask from Shelley. Rest in peace, Shelley, in this film. You have our female lead, Chris, who, I used to complain about Chris because I felt like there's times where she overacted, but she's really not in the film that much. She's in it, but like there's parts where she's missing in the film and like not focused upon. You have that backstory where like she's seen Jason before in the woods, and it's kind of cheesy, but you know what? This film does have some good kills. It does have Richard Broker as a pretty good Jason. There's only a few bad Jasons out of all the Jasons that we've had, played by actors or stuntman, and Richard Broker is one of the better ones. He's the character that's iconic for being the first real Jason that's not wearing a sack over his head. I have not talked about that film yet, though. But I can rewatch it. I think the biker game thing was a little corny, but it works. It's okay. And that's why I put Friday the 13th Part 3 as my number 3. Wait. Friday the 13th Part 3 as my number 6 is what I meant to say there. Oh, get ready to cancel me here. This is going to really piss a lot of people off, but my number 5 is going to be Jason Lives, Friday the 13th, Part 6. Now, I know many of you put this number 1 or number 2, and that's fine. I don't dislike the movie. I just like other movies before it, or, aside from it. And I know there's some movies I haven't talked about yet that you're scratching your head like, you like that more than Jason Lives? I think this film has the best opening by far in the franchise. Or, well, I guess there's 2 films that have a really good opening, this being one of them. I just don't really like the characters in this film. Tommy, we've already seen enough of Tommy already. The only Tommy I really liked was Corey Feldman. Megan, the sheriff's daughter, she's okay, but in my opinion, not that memorable. Sheriff Garris was actually really memorable in my opinion. But you have the end of the movie, Jason gets a chain put around his neck, and a rock is tied to that chain. And you're telling me Jason really couldn't get out of that if he really wanted to? Like, I think that's kind of cheesy. The film is like more of a PG version of Friday the 13th. Like, there's no nudity in the film, which I feel like is a letdown in my opinion. Because when I want to watch a Friday the 13th movie, I want to see a lot of nudity. That's just what I think. It was more of a toned down Friday the 13th. Not saying it's bad, but there's just something missing from it, in my opinion. So yeah, I know a lot of you are not happy with this decision, and I think it was a little bit higher last time, like either 4th or 3rd. But I just looked at it, and I like other films, at least at the moment, in this franchise more than Jason Lives. But hey, we at least got Jason back, and I think C.J. Graham was actually a really good Jason, just not my favorite film in the franchise. So Friday the 13th, Part 6, Jason Lives is my number 5. Coming in second place for me is going to be Friday the 13th, Part 2. Now, 5, 6, 7 years ago, this used to be toward the bottom of this list, but this film, I feel like, has a really good atmosphere. I mean, a lot of the film is recapping the events that happened in the original Friday the 13th with Alice, and then killing off Alice, which I liked killing Alice, because I did not like Alice as a final girl. But Ginny was an awesome final girl, that she did the psychology thing. She tricked Jason. I feel like this film had the clumsiest Jason out of all the Jasons that we've seen. And I just think it's really good. It's just an interesting film. I wish we would have Hockey Mask Jason in this film, because it would have been a lot better. But I feel like it's a solid movie in the franchise, if you can look past the Sackhead Jason. That was my main complaint about the movie, was Sackhead Jason. But if I look past that, it's really went up my list over the last 5 years. I think the last time I did this ranking was 2 years ago, maybe even 3. And if you look past Sackhead Jason, the clumsy Sackhead Jason, it's not bad. And that's why Friday the 13th Part 4, or Friday the 13th Part 2, comes in 4th place. Well, I said you should cancel me for a couple of my choices already, but this is another cancelable opinion in this franchise, and that is because my 3rd favorite film in this franchise is going to be Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood. I have always liked this film, and I know it's not a popular film. It was really heavily influenced by the MPAA, and we didn't get to see a lot of the kills, but I still feel it's a lot better. I love the character of Tina, played by Lar Park Lincoln. I absolutely love that character. It's my favorite final girl in this franchise by far. It's even over Ginny. I love Lar Park Lincoln so much. I've met her. I just absolutely love this film. I feel like a lot of people complained about the chemistry between Tina and Nick. When I watch the film, I don't think it's that bad. Maybe I'm just blind because of my love for Lar Park Lincoln, but I like it. Nick, okay, he was kind of bad, but I still like Nick in this film. You got, of course, the villain in the film, not Jason, it's Dr. Cruz, and, of course, Kane Hodder's first appearance as Jason Voorhees, and I think he did a phenomenal job in this film. He had the right look, definitely, for The New Blood, so it's good. I like this film a lot, and I know that's not a popular opinion. I don't know what to say. I just like the whole Jason and Tina dynamic where she was actually a threat to Jason, because Tina could just make things randomly happen, and Jason would be like, what the hell? I just found it entertaining, and I feel like it's more R-rated than Jason Lives, in my opinion. So Friday the 13th, Part 7, The New Blood, is my number 3. I know that's very hard to imagine my ranking right now, but hey, my opinion. Coming in second place for me, which I almost put this at number 1. I was contemplating, because there are really good moments in this film, would be the remake, Friday the 13th from 2009. I feel like this film, the opening scene, the 20 minutes of the film before even the title card comes up, is just awesome. Jason is awesome in this movie, played by Derek Mears. The characters, in my opinion, are great. Not necessarily the main characters, but like the side characters, I really liked. Clay, played by Jared Padalecki, he's okay. Whitney was okay. Jenna was okay, and then she died, which shocked the shit out of everybody. And I feel like Whitney should have died. But Derek Mears, I thought, was awesome. I thought Chewie was awesome, too. Not a lot of people talk about Chewie, but I really like that actor who's also in the movie Disturbia and 21. I just really like his character. He's kind of weird and eclectic, but I still like him. And then, of course, we have Trent's character, which I like Trent. I know that's an unpopular opinion, but I like Trent. You're supposed to hate him. And I feel like he works for me. And you know what? Clay is actually pretty good as a final guy, so to speak, in the movie. Even Lawrence, the guy, he doesn't live long, but Lawrence was good. And then, of course, we have the most stupendous movie, or the most stupendous moment in the Friday the 13th franchise, and that is Brie and her beautiful, stupendous boobies, which is awesome, in my opinion. The most stupendous movie in the Friday the 13th franchise with the most stupendous titties in the franchise. But I really get a kick out of this movie. I feel like the third act is a little weak, but aside from that, I feel like this is a really solid entry into the Friday the 13th franchise, and I would have loved to have had a direct sequel to this movie, which I doubt we'll ever get, let alone even get another movie in the franchise. I don't think we'll get anything close to this movie, but it's a really solid film, and that's why I put it number 2, which process of elimination means that my number 1, my favorite movie in the Friday the 13th franchise, is Friday the 13th, Part 4, The Final Chapter. This is such a solid movie in this franchise, and I would, if you want a solid horror movie, I think this is really good. A really dark and good atmosphere. You get the character of Trish, who isn't that entertaining. She's the final girl, but we get our first final guy of the franchise, really, in Tommy, who this little kid outsmarts and kills Jason Voorhees. You have an awesome performance by stuntman Ted White, who recently died within the last couple of years. The best Jason, in my opinion, although there's some strong candidates for number 2 and almost number 1, but I feel like this dark version of Jason was the best. And he didn't even want to get credited for the film, but he came around on it later in life. But I think Ted White was great. You, of course, have Jimmy, played by I'm forgetting his name, Crispin Glover, and the dance, which was hilarious. You got all the nudity in the film, which I think is really good. Oh, the only issue with this film that I really have, other than Trish not being that interesting, is Rob and the whole, he's killing me! He's killing me! He's killing me! Why don't you try to do something else to save your life rather than just to shout, he's killing me? Try to fight back. So, I love this film and this franchise. This has been my number one for quite a while. I do like the remake, though. I think that has some solid moments, but the end of that film is not as good. And this one, in my opinion, doesn't really have any flaws other than not really developing Trish that well. But it's already the whole thing was to focus really on Tommy Jarvis, this little kid that can outsmart this homicidal maniac in Jason Voorhees. So there you have it. There is my ranking of the Friday the 13th franchise. Again, it's going to be a couple years before I redo this. I don't do this ranking every year. Unless there's a new film. Otherwise, I wait 1 to 3 years or 2 to 3 years to do an updated ranking of a franchise just because I don't really want to rehash this stuff every year. And I don't want to watch those movies that many times. So I hope you guys watched till the end. I know some of my choices were a little head-scratching, like Part 7, The New Blood, in 3rd place. Part 6, Jason Lives, in 5th place. Just my opinion. So with me being done, obviously it's on you now to share the video with a friend, Hulk smash that like button, put this video on any one of your social media platforms. Don't forget to sound off in the comment section about what your thoughts are about my ranking of the Friday the 13th franchise. What would your ranking be? Please, let's be respectful. Again, this is my opinion, and I'll put my different rankings of franchises right there. There. I might put them in the reverse order that I said earlier. I can't remember exactly what I said, but I'll definitely put the playlist there, Halloween there, and I think Scream there, and Saw right there. And then last but certainly not least, don't forget to hit that sub button. You're watching the video anyway. Subscribe to the channel, join the team, share our damn support, and be a part of something special. And you never know what you're going to see on JDev TV.